Hi everyone, Mark here again, a life coach based in London, and I like to talk about small things that will make a big difference in your life. And today I want to talk about a recent topic which has come up. You may have seen my last video, which was about my last day at work, and I said I'd quit my job, and I just took a couple of clips just to give a flavour of what my last day at work was like and how I was feeling. And in that video, I said that I had quit my job, I had stopped working, and probably I'm looking at this as more of a career break than retirement. Although I think when I tell people that I'm stopping work or I quit my job, people look at me and they look at my grey hair and they go, "Are you retiring?" Given that I'm in my mid-50s, you can see their eyes widen, and it's almost like, how are you gonna live? What are you gonna do? And I think the question they're asking is, how can you afford in your mid-50s to stop working? So just to be clear, for this video, I'm not a financial advisor. I don't have any qualifications. In no way am I telling you what you should be doing. I'm only giving you the benefit of what has happened to me and the choices that I've made that has got me to this point. And it may turn out that I'm very wrong. Who knows? But it's a question that I sort of get from people saying, how can you do this? So I thought a video on how I'm doing it and what my thoughts are might be really useful. So I want to cast our minds back, way back. So I'm in my mid-50s now, and I want to go back to when I was in primary school. So right from my first year at primary school in Australia, we had a bank that used to come to our primary school. I don't know if they came once a month, once a fortnight, or even once a week. I can't remember the frequency of it, but they used to come to the primary school, and it was banking day. It was a Wednesday normally, and so on banking day, my mother would send me off with, I don't know, 50 cents in my hot little hand and a passbook. And in the morning, the bank person would come and we'd go in and they would take the money and write it in the in the passbook that we had. And I used to really enjoy watching the money go up and up. Now, it was only 50 cents, and it's not like I was going to, change my life over 50 cents. But my point being is that started a habit of saving. And so I was always a saver. And I think I have a saving mindset. I think also I have to acknowledge that my parents were very open about money. I think they would talk about money. They were quite entrepreneurial. Sometimes some of their decisions were good decisions. Some of their decisions, weren't probably great financial decisions, but they took some risks. Some of them paid off, some of them didn't. So I think I grew up in a family, and also I think my brothers and sisters might also have this same sort of openness and mindset about money. So I think there's something about growing up in a family with parents who are quite open about money and talk about money and how to use money, not just save it, but to how to actually use the money so that you get the most benefit out of it. And I think that's a key part of it. So it started right back when I was in primary school with my 50 cents on banking days. The other thing that because I was thinking about this and I was thinking, oh, how have I done this right? How am I doing this? So that's where all these stories have come from. Also, I remember as a child on TV, there was a bank advert, and the bank advert was like, if you've got $200, put it into our bank account and you get a high rate of interest. Now, I wouldn't have been more than 10. I don't think I was more than 10, but I was like also connecting this to my other bank account where the banking person would come to the school, and I'd say to mum and dad, when I got $200, can I move into this bank account and get a higher rate of interest? And they were like, yeah, sure, no problem. So that also came back to mind. So I do think from, when I was quite young, I had a savings mindset. I got into a habit of saving and I understood about saving. And my parents supported me in that. I don't think I ever did get to $200 out of interest. But nevertheless, the principle is there. So I think what I'm trying to say is there's an element of financial literacy which I was developing, even at an early age. Taking an interest in money, holding money, saving money, and watching how it all worked and listening to my parents. And I think it's the financial literacy element which has allowed me to get to where I am today. I don't think I can really say much about my teenage years. I had a part-time job, but most of that was during university. You know what we do with money when we're in university, so I won't go into that. Then in my 20s, when I first got my first full-time job, full-time permanent job, my father said, you should take out $100 each payday and put it into a savings account. So I did. I just did it sort of unquestioningly. My friends would ask, why are you doing that? And I really didn't have an answer other than my father suggested I do it. And I said, I guess it's savings. I'll use it for something later on. So I didn't really have a plan for what I was going to do with that money. But again, it was that savings habit. It's just simply putting money into a bank account. And I think doing it then, up until having that full-time job, I mean, I had a part-time job, but it didn't, pay very much. And certainly in childhood, I was only getting pocket money. So when I got a full-time job and suddenly like over $1,000 was appearing in my bank account each payday, I mean, my mind was just blown. So putting $100 aside was just no problem at all. So I think that was key also in continuing this savings habit. I can't remember what I did with that money. It probably got consumed when I set up a mortgage or something like that. But certainly through my 20s, I was saving $100 every payday. And that continued that savings mindset. Again, financial literacy, not really sure whether you'd call that, but I would say that, I just didn't take the $100 and go and blow it on, anything. So there is an element of knowing how important it was to save money. I'd say in my 30s, I wasn't very good. I moved over to the UK and my jobs were minimum wage jobs. I think my first job was in a pub and I was earning £4.50 an hour. And so I wasn't really earning a lot of money there. And I had to sort of live off that. And my accommodation was taken care of, but everything else, food, clothing, travel, had to come out of that. So certainly through my 30s, I did a series of minimum wage jobs and sort of lived on the edge with that. But I learned a lot about myself, and I learned there were other things in my 30s. One day I'll do a video about my 30s and tell you the difference between my 20s and 30s. But financially, I call it my lost decade. I really didn't do much with that at all. Then in my 40s, things sort of changed. And the thing that made it change was I suddenly started thinking, I'm in my 40s. I've now got a reasonably good job. They're paying me a pension or paying into a pension for me. And I thought, I wonder what my other pension is doing. So I looked back at my pension when I had my first job in Australia, in my 20s. And it had been in DC pension scheme, a defined contribution pension scheme. So it had been in the stock market. And of course, by now, it's been 10, 15 years or so since I last looked at it. I actually quite forgot about it, just didn't really think about it. And when I looked at it in my 40s, it had gone from here to sort of here. And I thought, hang on, I didn't even put any money in. How's it gone up so much? And of course, if it's within the stocks and shares at the time, it rode the wave of a rise in stocks and shares. So through no skill of mine or any talent that I had, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time and rode that wave of the stocks and shares going up. And so that made me think, wow, am I right to keep money just sitting in the bank? So at the time, in the UK, we had ISAs, individual savings accounts, which were protected from tax. So any interest that you received on any deposits, you didn't have to pay any tax on them. And they were very popular. The cash ones were very popular, and I think from my research, they are still quite popular, but they paid a low rate of interest. But stocks and shares ISAs became more of a thing. And so I became more interested in, well, what if I took my money out of the cash ISA and put it in a stocks and shares ISA? What would happen? So I took some money out, I kept some in cash and put some in stocks and shares. The stocks and shares continued to rise, and so then I moved all my savings from my cash ISA into my stocks and shares ISA, and it has continued to grow. So by now, I'm in like my 50s now. I have to say, I've probably done a really bad thing that all my eggs are in one basket. My savings are in stocks and shares ISA, so they're in stocks and shares. Pensions are in stocks and shares because they have to be. There's no other option for that. So, yeah, they are riding whatever the stocks and shares do. But the point that I'm trying to make for this video was in my 40s, I started questioning whether stocks and shares ISA are a good thing. Should I keep them in cash? What should I do about this extra money that I've got? I've now got a reasonable income coming in. How much can I save? Where should I put it? I moved in with my partner, so because we were now two people in one house, we could save some more money. So I became a lot more interested in where my money was going, and not just saving it, but using the money to invest to make my money work. And that's where that financial literacy really turbocharged in my 40s. How did I do it? I would say I was looking at websites like Mr. Money Mustache or whatever his name was. I've got no affiliations with any of these people. I'm just telling you who I was watching. Money Saving Expert, Martin Lewis. On YouTube, I watch a lot of YouTube, and over the recent years, there's people like James Shack and Damien Talks Money. They're really good videos on YouTube to watch for people who want to learn about what to do with money and how money works and how investing works. So my financial literacy in my 40s really started to become an interest for me, and I became not obsessive, but I just wanted to make sure that I was making good choices. Did I make good choices all the time? I'm not really sure, but what I did do, and I think this is key, is that I made informed choices. So, I don't blame anyone else for anything that I did or places that I put the money, but I made informed choices, and that's what financial literacy gives you, is the ability to make an informed choice. Whether it's the right choice or not, that's entirely up to you. It's very personal, and each person's circumstances are different. So what worked for me may not work for you. So you have to do your own research. So financial literacy was really key. So now that I'm in my mid-50s, I'm just, again, I'm going to say I'm very privileged. I had the opportunities and I had the resource to be able to ride the waves of things like the stocks and shares going up, the property prices going up. So I do acknowledge that I have lived through a very privileged period of time. However, I could have taken that money and blown it up against a wall. Who knows? I could have done a lot with that money rather than put it into my pension and put it into ISAs and spend time and hours looking at where I should invest and how I should invest. And so I know people who do that. They get an extra bit of money and they go and splash it. Good for them. Good for them. As long as they're making an informed decision, it's none of my business what people do with their money. It's only my business what I do with my money. I talk to friends about what to do. I've got friends who are bank tarts, and what that is they move their money around. They open different bank accounts around as banks give incentives for them to open accounts. I'm a bit lazy, I can't be bothered with that. But that's another option. It's about finding new products. It's about finding new trends. Because of my age, I'm looking at things like I'm looking at the news about pensions and changes to the pension schemes and the pension age. So having that financial literacy is, I think, really key to how I've ended up being able to stop work in my mid 50s. And, I could take some time off. Will I go back to work? I'm not sure. Who knows what the future brings? But certainly my financial literacy will continue to grow because things change. You can't let it be stagnant. But at least I'll be making informed choices. So when people say to me, how on earth did you get to this point? It's not something that I just started, last year, or I didn't suddenly start a savings account when I was 50. I put it down to the fact that way, way back when I was in primary school, certain habits were put into place and I started to understand about money and how it worked. And I think if I had a child now, I don't have a child, but if I did, I think I would try to start that financial literacy. And by that, one thing I think is really important, and this is just my opinion again, is for really young children to have access to physical money. That 50 cents in my hot little hand when I was in primary school meant something to me. It wasn't just a digit on a screen. So having to pay money over, there's a certain amount of pain, and we know this from research that a lot of people find just tapping to pay for things now, there's absolutely no pain. You can go online and with a few clicks spend $100 or £100, and really it does nothing. You go and pay over $100 or £100 in cash, your heart skips a beat a little bit. And so there is something about using physical cash. And I think for young children, receiving, $5 or £5 in their birthday card just gives them so much joy rather than I owe you $5. So I think with young children, using actual cash is really helpful. This is just my opinion. And, obviously later on they need to understand that things are digital now. But I think that was a really helpful thing for me to do. That even again, this is how much of a dinosaur I am. I was going to use the example of going to a cash point and like children, mum would say, oh, we don't have, I can't afford that. We don't have the money. And just go to the cash machine and it just gives out money. What's the problem? People don't even do that much nowadays. So, but the point was, like, as a child, not having that knowledge of, that money in the cash machine, there's a history to that money and where it's from. Which, of course, if you're a child, you're not expected to know all these sorts of things. But there are just little learning opportunities all the way through. And so financial literacy starts quite early. And I don't think that in this country, in the UK, we do that very well. I speak to people, I used to be in HR, and so I'd speak to people about pensions and their pay. And sometimes I would really have to put on a poker face when people would talk to me about their money and their finance and how their pay and their pension, because they did not understand it. And these are adults. So I don't think we do financial literacy very well. There are, obviously people who do, like me, who take an interest and are learning as we go, and, we're doing that. But as a government, it's not a priority, financial literacy, and I think that is a real key issue. It seems like the government doesn't want you to know about financial literacy. It's just not a priority for them. Corporations definitely don't want you to know about financial literacy. It's not in their best interests. So it's left, at the high level, it's just not going to happen in the foreseeable future. So it's left to individuals and families to do this. So I would say if you could give your children some financial literacy, or yourself some financial literacy, you'll be doing yourself a favor. Ignore it at your peril, because when it does become critical, when you're middle-aged or you're laid off or made unemployed, you suddenly start looking at things with sharp focus, and you don't want to say, had I known, I would have done this, this, and this. Having the financial literacy means, well, I made that choice. It was either the right or wrong choice, but I made that choice because it's your money and you need to take an active interest in how it's used. And you can only really do that with financial literacy and education. So that was the point of my video today, was how financial literacy, starting from being very young, helped me get to a point where I can stop work, whether it be for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. It allowed me to do that. And I think it's a great thing for everyone to learn. So if you'd like to talk more about making some changes in your life, whether it be about middle age, life, pensions, retirement, where things are going, how to learn about financial literacy, please look at my website, www.mtccoaching.net, and book some sessions and we can talk about it. But for now, thank you very much and have a great day. Bye.